Let's assume that you had 1,000 Rand that you needed to deliver somewhere and you ended up being sick. And if you had to think of two people that you would trust to deliver that money for you, can you think of two people that you trust to deliver that money for you? And then at the same time, can you think of two people that you cannot trust to deliver that money for you? And the book of Proverbs says, Proverbs chapter 22 verses 1 says, "A good name is to be more desired than great wealth, and great wealth. Favor is better than gold." Integrity is something that's very rare these days. And a few weeks ago, Dad spoke about integrity. And this week, I just want to share some examples and just a few more verses about integrity. So, Wikipedia definition for integrity, Wikipedia says, integrity is the practice of being honest and showing a consistent and uncompromising adherence to strong moral and ethical principles and values. In ethics, integrity is regarded as the honesty and truthfulness or accuracy of one's actions. And the question that I ask to you is, what is your value? What's your value? There was a Spanish commander, when he arrived at an island, he told his crew to destroy the ships that they arrived on. And his reason for destroying those ships is that his crew would have to conquer or die. And we look at integrity, I feel integrity is similar to that, is that you have to burn or destroy all compromising situations or destroy all compromising thoughts or backup values that you have. With integrity, it's you either all in or you all out. And with your values and with what you hold close to you, it's what makes you as a person. And we look at a few years ago, there was a client of mine that they asked me, they were going on a holiday, so they asked me to come past and pick up payment. So it was a bit late at night, it was about 9 o'clock at night, so I went to pick up the payment. And so I didn't count the money, I just took the cash, and I went home. When I went home, there was extra money in there compared to what the invoice said. And on one hand, I could have said, I could have just assumed, well, I didn't know that I did extra work for them, so they gave me that extra money. But could I just assume that, and at the same time, on the other hand, they could have been saying, we gave him the extra money, let's just test and see whether he actually returns it. And so I called them at 10 o'clock that night, and I said, extra money in here. And like I thought, they said, no, that we've given you that extra money. And you don't assume things. With integrity, you don't assume things. You always make sure and check the facts. There's an old saying that goes, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for everything. And a man's character speaks volumes of him. And that's why it's very important for parents to understand that bringing up your children in the ways of the Lord and instilling values in them from a young age, it carries with them through the rest of their life. And the good character that comes out or the bad character that comes out is what you instill, the values you instill in your young children. And this one, most young people tend to forget this one, and they think that character and values don't matter when you're young. But unfortunately, the reality is that character catches up with you sooner or later. You cannot live any old how, and we must live the life that Jesus lived. Even if no one is watching, we must obey the command of James chapter 1 verses 22, which says, "Do not merely be listeners of the word, and so deceiving yourselves. Do what it says." You know, a person of character doesn't change. Your values and your personalities does not change according to the crowd you are with. You know, sometimes you see people that you know, and when you see them in a different crowd, and you look and you think, is that the same person? Is that them? And your character must be consistent in your home, in your workplace, in the church. You must be one person. A person of integrity's character always stays the same, no matter where they are, no matter what the atmosphere. You know, one day I parked my car in town, and the meter attendant came, and she said that's going to be 10 rand. And so I gave her 20 rand, and in the back of my mind I said I'll give her the other 10 rand. And so she said, "No, I don't have change. When you come back, I'll give you the other 10 rand, the 10 rand change." And what I did was, when I got back to the car, I looked around and I saw she was nowhere to be found. So as I jumped into the car, I noticed that she was actually ducking behind the tree and waiting for me to leave. And the question again, what is your value? The Bible says, "He who is faithful in little will be faithful in much." Sometimes you hear people always say, "This character is always late," or "This character is like this character is like that." And someone once told me, or someone once said, if you late for a meeting or a function, that means that your time is more important than my time. And try to be on time all the time, and try to make that part of your character. You know, what is your value? What is your value? And when it comes to family, and when it comes to friends, or business, what is your value? Once your values are written down on your heart, they should never be compromised, no matter how big the loss. And when I was about 19 years, I was working for a company, and I went for a meeting with the boss, and he lit a cigarette while we were walking towards the door. And as we went towards the door, so he turned around and he said, "Can you hold this for me? I'll just go in quickly." And I said, "No." And so he turned around and he said, "I'm not asking you to smoke it, I'm just asking you to hold it." And I said, "No." So he got a bit upset, he just put it off and he went inside. And don't compromise your values for anyone. When your values are written in your heart, don't compromise for anyone. And the hardest time and the real test is when it comes to family and close friends. You know, don't make any room for the enemy in your home by compromising your value for others. And when your character is tested, it always makes people feel uncomfortable. And if you're smoking, don't tell your children not to smoke. If you're using vulgar languages, don't tell your children or expect your children not to use languages. If you're stealing and you're doing crooked deals, don't expect your children not to do the same later in life. Your character matters most when no one is watching. The things that you do when you know you won't get caught. In the Bible, it says that Jesus turned over the tables selling in the temples. And when things that are wrong conflict with your character, it must upset you. And most times people's pressure and people's character comes when real pressure comes their way. And time after time we've seen people that are really close to God and really serving God, and when things go wrong and when their boat is rocked, that you really see the true character that arises from within. And you know, sometimes you see the timid person, such a timid person and such a humble person, and all of a sudden when someone trumps their toes, you see the whole of hell break loose. And don't be that person. Always let God's character rule and reign in your life. You know, I went to buy a takeaway once, and I asked the lady for a family meal, and so it was 120 rand. And so I gave her 120 rand, and she gave me 110 rand change. And I said, wow, you're really having a special today. And she said, yes, it's a big special. And I said, yo, 10 rand just for a family meal. And then she looked confused, and I showed her the 110 rand. And how many people would have actually thought in that situation that God opened a door to bless them? And don't be that person that will make someone else pay for the shortfall or make someone else suffer for your gain. And the book of Job, in closing, it says, Job chapter 2 verses 3, it says, and the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. He still holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him with reason. And character is not something that's built overnight. Character is built test after test, decision after decision, year in, year out. But at the same time, character can be destroyed in 1 second. Once I was working somewhere, and so the guys were going to have a braai, and most of these guys I was about 19 years old, 20 years old, and everyone else was in their 40s, 50s and 60s. And so the other guys, they used to drink. And so what happened was they asked me, two guys asked me to pick them up. So I picked the first guy up, and quite a big size. And that time I had the VW Fox, which was quite a small car. And so I went to pick the first guy up. He jumped in the back seat. Strangely enough, there was no one in the front seat. So he jumped in the back seat, and went to the next guy's house. And so I stopped at the bottom of the road, and his house was above road level. And so then I turned around to look in the back seat, and I see the guy that I picked up. He's on the floor, and he's ducking down, and he's rolling down, crunching on the ground. And so I don't think anything. I just ignored it. And the other guy came in. He opened the door, jumped in the front seat, and you can see. And he says, "Jerry, there's my wife. Just wave for my wife." So I waved for the auntie. And then we went further down. As we went further down, the guy in the back seat wakes up, and they're both laughing. So I said, "What are you all laughing about?" And so the guy in the front seat says, my wife said I can only come to the party if I'm going with Jerry, and if she sees him, I won't be allowed to come. And you know, that's why I say character starts at a young age. People need to know who you are and what you stand for from a young age. And you need to be consistent. Your walk and your daily life needs to be consistent every day. Be that person of integrity. Be that person whose values never change. Be that person whose character never changes in different crowds. Be that person, whether you're sitting with the king or whether you're sitting with the person that's begging in the side of the street. Be that person whose character never changes. Treat everyone exactly the same. And you know, the most important out of everything that we've learned today is that make sure that your character and your life is a life that reflects the life of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you.